Let's get into some of the detail now. National Editor at the Australian, Dennis Shanahan, joins me from Canberra. Parliament back, as I said, question time today. The Coalition took the government on about broken promises on power prices and the hit on local businesses. Let's have a listen.
Will the Prime Minister apologise to families and businesses like the one Louis and Tess run for not delivering on his $275 commitment to cut electricity prices?
Given the budget confirmed power prices will rise 56% and interest rates have already gone up 6 times since the election, how can the Prime Minister seriously suggest that life is cheaper under Labor?
Why are businesses like the Heritage Hotel in Dorrigo having to pay for the Prime Minister's broken promise to cut power prices?
This is, bread for oppositions, because all of them will have businesses in their communities, Dennis, that are hit with power prices. Bad now, only going to get worse. And when you're a minister, it's really hard to contend with those local examples. You can't just put the glib line out there all the time.
No, exactly. And look, the Coalition is sticking with its attack over the broken promise on the $275 cut to electricity prices, which just obviously can't be held. And as well, the Coalition has been working on the families. They're talking about around the kitchen table about family budgets, but they've now shifted to small business. Now, Peter Dutton has previously said families, working families and small business are the areas where he is going to seek support, and that is where the government is weakest on all of this energy price rises. The family who is sitting around the kitchen table is going to feel it with the mortgage rates as well. And so the government is just hoping. They won't apologise. They won't acknowledge that the 275 promise is even broken yet. They're just hoping that as time goes on, more positive promises will overtake and that the Coalition gets sick of the questions. I don't think there's much sign of Peter Dutton getting sick of asking about the broken promise on the $275.
Not at all. Let's go to IR, because I think what's very interesting here, the government is very determined to get the legislation through by Christmas. That will obviously lessen any scrutiny there is from the upper house. But of course, you've got this alliance now between AMA, Minerals and Metal Organisation. You've got the NFF, National Farmers Federation, out today. You've got a lot of the small business advocacy groups. They think it's gone too far, and they've got a lot of sympathy, it would seem, from the Senate crossbench.
Look, I think this industrial relations change is the biggest challenge the government has had to face. It's something it's brought on itself. I think that there have been other things like climate change and so on, which it's been able to deal with. This IR change has the biggest ramifications for inflation, for the economy, for the breaching of promises, for the keeping of promises. This is very important to the government. I think that clearly they didn't expect that the Teals independent, particularly David Pocock in the Senate, would oppose it. And now they are back to the stage where we're seeing daily reruns of promises to compromise because of the major concerns from big business, small business, and also some employee organisations. Some of the unions are not happy with what's going on, and even Paul Keating has criticised the plan. So I think this is very important for the government. I think that what they will do is continue to make a few compromises, but I don't think they'll actually back down. Politically, if they're seen to be able to say, OK, we'll split the bill as David Pocock wants, or we'll put it off till next year, it'll be seen as a move of weakness. I think Anthony Albanese is prepared to take this to the line in the Senate before Christmas and then live with the consequences of having it defeated in the Senate. This is too big a game to start splitting the bill or giving more ground to the independents. I think Labor is really intent on getting this through because it owes it to the Labor movement.
Let's not forget too, it doesn't hurt to get some of these bills knocked off in their entirety, perhaps bring them back, create yourself a double dissolution trigger. It'd be then an election campaign with the unions at war with Labor side by side on something they very much care about. Let's go to the UN climate conference, COP27 they call it, in Egypt, underway on the weekend. PM sending two ministers, Chris Bowen and Pat Conroy. We've got this methane pledge that Australia's going to sign up to. A pledge versus an aspiration versus a commitment. I mean, we all know where this is headed. But just before I came on air, the UK negotiators are out there publicly, having left the door open on what's called climate reparations. So money from countries like Australia that have developed using fossil fuels paid to poorer countries that will not be obviously able to use them into the future. I have always said, Dennis, this is all about wealth redistribution as much as it's anything to do about the environment. And we're now moving into that territory.
Well, we are, and it's always been about the rich first world providing more assistance to the third world. But with all of these definitions, all these economic definitions, we forget that China is not a signatory to this. Is China going to provide reparations for countries in Africa for its use, its large use of fossil fuels, its biggest emitter in the world of carbon emissions? These are all issues that come up every time we have one of these climate change conferences. And this time, Anthony Albanese, after insisting that Scott Morrison had to go to the last one, has decided he's not going to go. He's sending two ministers instead. Now, I think that what we're seeing here is the fact that the Prime Minister, asked in Parliament today, by the way, would he stop all new gas and coal projects to enable Australia to host the next climate summit? He didn't answer no, he didn't answer yes, because he wants it both ways on climate emissions. And Australia can't afford to continue to play both ways, particularly with this methane aspiration, which would really hit the livestock industry, along with the mining industry, our real strengths in Australia.
I can't help but feeling we're headed to hell in a handcart, Dennis Shanahan. Thank you.